we will actually have a debate on this, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Lois Perry, director of CAR26, somebody that is calling for a referendum on net zero. Lois, welcome to the programme. Now,
Thank you.
Record temperatures. There are nearly 40 locations in the UK today that have recorded record ever temperatures.
Of course, those temperature records only started 120 years ago, and there is a huge span of history, including Roman warming period, medieval warming period, which were much hotter. They were growing grapes and making wine in Manchester. You know, there is a huge amount of scientific evidence that you don't ever hear because people are no platformed, they're sacked from their jobs, they're just not funded.
Why? Why? So why? You know, I mean, look, I understand what you're saying, but explain to people, why is it? Because whenever the science is talked about, and Blair said the science is settled all those years ago, why is it that scientist after scientist is lined up to say we think rising CO2 emissions are warming the planet?
It's a libertarian issue. It's no different from Brexit. The whole net zero thing is about, well, I believe, is about control. It's about controlling how much we travel, how much, you know, whether we can go out, leave the house. We've had COVID lockdowns. Now we're looking at, in the last couple of days, the whole concept of climate lockdown, i.e. it's too hot to go out. You know, there is a huge, as you said, there's a huge amount of vested interest, people that are actually...
Oh, I can see that.
People are making money. There's ESG, all of the different financial instruments that have been put in place.
Surely, with nearly 8 billion of us on this planet, surely we're having some impact on the environment.
The thing is, as you correctly said, in this country, we can say we want to cut our carbon. I don't believe it has any impact on the environment whatsoever.
Don't you?
No, none.
So you don't accept that rising... And CO2 in the atmosphere has risen.
Yes, it has.
It's still a fraction of 1% in total. I get all of that, but
there weren't many cars in the Roman period when it was a lot hotter, and we know that for a fact. And there weren't many cars, and there weren't many coal-powered fire stations in, you know, in the medieval period, in the Roman period. So, what was the problem there? I mean, I think it's Otto Weiss has been talking about cyclical solar patterns, which show that it's absolutely nothing to do with CO2 whatsoever. The thing is, I should be allowed to think that, and it should be allowed to be debated, and physicists and scientists that believe that should be allowed to go on platforms or go on TV.
We never see them.
Because you know why? Because the other scientists' arguments would be absolutely torn apart by anyone who has not been paid off to say this absolute nonsense.
So it's all a conspiracy?
I don't think it's a conspiracy. No, there are a huge amount, as you said, of vested interest in this, and you know, a lot of them do believe it. But look at the things that are brought in, you know, surrounding the whole carbon stuff. You know, you can only have a limited amount of this. You can only have a certain amount of meat, and then that will be better for your health. You can only travel a certain amount. Not too many cars. But there's a whole thing, isn't there, about having 10-minute radius of your house so you can walk everywhere. So the powers that be decide what you need.
So you see this as you're sceptical on the science.
Yeah, I am.
And this is the only place you'd be allowed to say it, and we allow you to say it.
But doesn't that make you worried that there's only one place that you're allowed to talk about it? Because if people are certain, why wouldn't they have debates all the time?
No, I mean, there were people that advocated the Earth was flat, and they were wrong. But you know, whether you're right or wrong, you should be allowed to put your point of view.
Fair enough.
And that's the point that I'm making.
Right. I agree with you. Yeah.
And I do tend personally towards some sympathy with the view that what we're doing, producing less than 1% of global CO2, is not necessarily, you know, that big a factor in the world.
But we can only do that because we're farming it out everywhere else. You know, we're bringing over wood pellets from America and
burning drags. I know, I get it.
China, we're getting that energy from them. We're not fracking.
But you see this really as being used as a means of control.
They didn't want us to leave Europe. The world didn't want it. Well, certain elements did not want us to leave Europe. They didn't want us to leave Europe because they didn't want us to have autonomy. If we're energy self-sufficient, we have autonomy. We're not dependent on anything else. We can make our own food. We can grow our own food. We've got our own energy. We can't be told what to do. This is a libertarian issue, whether you believe that CO2 is impacting on the world or not.
So tell me how disappointed you were in Kemi Badenoch, because she was there, that she was a week ago, and she was kind of saying, that if we pursue the government's net zero target, it'll be a self-inflicted economic wound. It makes no sense, and we as a small country in terms of CO2 make no real difference. Then suddenly it all seemed to change, didn't it?
Well, she's probably been offered a post in government on the basis that she reverses it, whoever she's decided to give her votes to.
Simple as that. She's been bought off.
Yeah, and she's a young, beautiful, attractive, gorgeous, clever girl, and and why not? I think she's been bought off. Yeah.
What should the government do about these net zero targets? Are they?
They should scrap them. They're ridiculous, and they're actually human hating. They're human hating.
Right. Well, strong words there from Lois Perry. We thank you for coming on and joining us in GB News. As I say, we